Yeah, I mean, like if I broke it up in my strength training, probably it comes out over average about a 50-50 mix. There's something about variety in a workout from keeping you stale because I have to be focused on compliance and consistency. And I do want to maximize some of those capabilities from force. When it gets into power training, I'm probably 75% of the time using pneumatics, 25 mass.
สำหรับท่านไหนนะครับที่กำลังมองหาอุปกรณ์การฝึกไม่ว่าจะเป็นในบ้านหรือในยิมที่ตอบโจทย์การฝึกอย่างครบครันรวมไปถึงนะครับอุปกรณ์การฝึกระดับโลกและก็ไม่ว่าจะเป็นรองเท้านาฬิกาเสื้อผ้าแกดเจ็ตต่างๆเกี่ยวกับการวิ่งหรือแม้กระทั่งคนที่อยากหาค่าความฟิตของตัวเองการเทส VO2max Test พบกันได้ครับที่ M Live Shop Central World หรือช่องทางการติดต่อตามนี้เลยครับ
I think the world is debating right now about, strength training all the time. There's new research coming out. You should do this protocol for this and that and strength training, and people are coming out with, weird new fad exercises. Seems to be like every month, coming out from weird form of yoga to like mobilization drills and training strength in a weird way. Like, can you talk about foundation of strength and power and endurance in sports?
I mean, I think again we have to go back to the basic concepts. When we talk about strength training, that's a term that's not defined very well. Strength can be developed at very low forces, at very high velocities. But traditionally speaking in strength training, we're talking about an athlete trying to create large amount of forces pretty slowly. Like if you executed a 1 RM on the squat, that's happening on mass at about 0.3 meters per second. So that's really slow compared to what life throws at us or what happens in the playing field. So the strength training is one of the 5 major components. Now, on the other side of strength is the velocity aspect of it. Now, velocity is left out of almost all protocols or methodologies in the weight room because unfortunately, most weight rooms only have mass-based tools. And as we know, it's very hard to move mass very fast at light weights without having to decelerate to slow down and stop. And I think the research on using massive speed is not very good. So that's when you have to implement other tools as resistances like pneumatics. And then obviously when you take those middle loads of resistance and you do it fast, that's where we get power. The product of force and velocity is power. So, look, you have to look at an exercise as a stimulus, okay? And you're trying to get an adaptation, and it happens in the body systems. Now, the results through exercise, that's external. But all those external events are happening because something is changing inside of your body. So the main driving mechanism outside your muscle fiber makeup and the amount of muscle mass you have for strength is activation. So as long as a method is really good at activating muscle fibers, it's going to be a method that could be successful. Now there's some collateral damage associated with how much volume do you have to do of this, how much time do you have to spend in the weight room. But really in speed power sports, it comes down to velocity or speed, limb speed training as opposed to running speed is controlled by the nervous system's ability to operate very fast at a high level of frequency, which is known as rate coding. And then power, because it involves force and velocity, is going to be more so a combination of activation and more so a product of frequency, rate coding. So again, it's hard to sell and monetize a concept, but it's very easy to sell and monetize a method. So again, whatever method you decide, as long as it meets the basic concepts of what's happening in the neuromuscular system and the driving force behind getting stronger is correct. And as long as your speed training is safe, because that becomes a huge issue with moving at high velocities with mass. I don't train at all all with mass for velocity or very little for power. I use pneumatics because there is no inertia, there's very little momentum, more muscle activation through the range of motion. So I don't like to spend a lot of time arguing with people over their method if they don't have a solid fundamental concept of the concepts.
Because a lot of people seems to be talking, you know, oh, steel is the gold standard of strength training.
Jack steel, get strong.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, you got to remember velocity and force are inversely related. So yes, if you get strong, at some point your power will go up and your velocity may go up, but there is a diminishing return on that, where if you focus all of your career on just strength. Look, we talk about, you know, things that people do wrong, right? I think one of the big things is that when they get a young athlete, they get them really strong, right? And what ends up happening is that athlete and that coach, that strength becomes a crutch. And they're like, oh, strength got me there. You know, like there's this saying, and I think it's a fallacy, that keep doing whatever got you there. Well, the human body and the way we respond changes. And I think at some point, if you stay with that over and over and over again, you're gonna affect your capability of your body to move fast. So again, I think it's a balance depending on what you're trying to do.
Is it true that up to a certain point, the more muscles you get, the slower you become?
No, I don't think it's about the muscles. I think it's about the interaction of look, a muscle in my mind is, think about ground meat, right? It's just sitting there. It doesn't have the ability to contract. It doesn't have the ability to do anything. The only thing that makes that muscle contract is the nervous system, okay? So that nervous system in strength training, what you're trying to do is you're trying to get every muscle fiber activated with a neuron to make sure that it fires in sequence with each other. Now, that's what we try to maximize for strength training, okay? But that's not what creates velocity, limb velocity. It's about getting all those muscles activated and getting the nervous system to fire very fast. Then that's why you talk about specificity of training.
And that's, can I say that's actually power?
Well, it's when you combine forces, the faster you can move that force, the more power and watch you will generate.
So the ability to move something at a speed, that's power.
Yeah, so like if you and I are walking across the street and you walk briskly and we're walking 10 meters across the street, you walk briskly, I mean, I walk a step or two behind you. You just created more power than I did. And if we're looking for one thing, and there's just not a lot of research out there on it yet, is that I would say that power becomes vastly more important in longevity and quality of life than strength does.
Sure. Then what do you train for power? What do you use to train for power?
Well, as an athlete and in longevity or healthy living, I will take my predominantly big compound movements that are involved in hip extension, posterior chain, and I would simply input a regimen of 3 to 5 to 6 reps. It's going to be roughly somewhere between 45 and 60% of your 1 RM, and you try to move it as fast as possible. And you would be surprised how much difference that makes just implementing 1 time per week.
And is that where pneumatics comes in?
Yeah, I mean, like if I broke it up in my strength training, probably it comes out over average about a 50-50 mix. There's something about variety in a workout from keeping you stale, because I have to be focused on compliance and consistency. And I do want to maximize some of those capabilities from force. When it gets into power training, I'm probably 75% of the time using pneumatics, 25 mass. And then outside of jump squats, almost everything I do for speed in the weight room is pneumatic based. So I kind of lay it in that 90% pneumatics, 10% mass.
What about Olympic lifts?
I don't actually train Olympic lifts for power. I train Olympic lifts for an increase in rate of force development. And that's acceleration. So how quickly do I get to those peak forces? And I use that exclusively through the use of
Because a lot of people seems to be, misled to thinking that rate of force development is all about power.
No, rate of force development is all about increasing acceleration to peak forces, then shortening the time. I mean, if you think about sprinting, when you go to foot contact time, you're only on the ground for a very short period of time. Doesn't matter how much force you can create. It matters how much force you can create on the limited time that you're on the ground. So in my training, I focus a lot on power and rate of force development. I use Olympic lifting for rate of force development, and I use big compound movements where I train for power.
And then there's a concept that as a cyclist, we use this term very, very, ubiquitously, and it's called power endurance.
Right.
You know, in your definition, how do you define power endurance? Because it seems to be different people have different interpretation of the term.
Well, we know what power is, and we know endurance is longer durations of time. So traditionally, when I'm training power, I kind of set the threshold that I don't want to drop my power below, say, 10%. So like if my first, let's use 100 watts. If my average for power is about 100 watts on a movement, I would set the rep scheme to where it doesn't drop below 90%. Okay, so I've only got a 10% loss for power. So for me, power endurance is being able to hold that for longer durations of time. So all I simply do is I drop the threshold down to 20 or 25%, and I do very ballistic explosive movements where I let the power come down a little bit, but I add duration to it.
And then testing that power, that's with the software that comes with like the pneumatic systems.
Yeah, I mean, you could actually use a 10-to-1 mass, but again, you're spending all of your time overcoming momentum. And it really takes away from the muscle activation, because momentum is really going to be a killer for muscle activation, because it's like if you took a weight and you threw it. Like it comes a point when you move it fast, it flies off your hand and there's no force. So, you know, all of these things, look, all of these types of resistances are tools. It just so happens that pneumatics is the most versatile tool that we have at our disposal, except for rate of force development at very high forces.
So from how I understood the way you phrase it was, to train for power, we have to train in a way to not teach the body to slow down through the range of motion.
Absolutely. Like, something that I'm starting to look into is neuroplasticity, right? And neuroplasticity is dependent on intent. And if you think about intent, and let's say you're losing a load at 45% of your 1RM, you can't intentionally push through the whole range of motion, because once you get to right here, you start worrying about deceleration. And it's quite obvious when you get people who have never trained on pneumatics before, and you say hit it fast, and they don't even know how to hit it fast.
Yeah, for sure. And it's very interesting things you said about intent, because you know, one of our mentors, like Randy Huntington, you know, I was with him when he was coaching. He taught me how to use the training athletes just to try to get peak power. And he's like, can you kick as hard as you can while spelling your name backwards? And then no matter how hard you try, you just can't kick hard. Just the brain seems to be, you need the brain to be completely focused about that movement to be able to achieve high power. And it seems to not have anything to do with your muscle qualities.
Well, you know, there was a research article that came out in the last year that kind of debunked the theory that standalone machines weren't good for athletic development. But I think if you look at like a confined movement, where you let's take a leg press, for example. Traditionally not thought of as a performance piece, but the human brain, when we're doing a squat, is focused on so many things besides being fast and powerful. We have to balance, we have to work on so many things. So you're not really maximizing the human body to create this huge amount of power. Whereas if you get on something like a leg press and you have a display that's giving you instant feedback, and you can take that coaching cue and directly relate it to a metric that goes up on the screen, you really are able to focus in and drive and create that stimulus that we're looking for to hopefully get the adaptation of becoming a more powerful human through hip extension.
Wow, that is very, very interesting to know. And what do you feel like in terms of knowing what you know right now?
Right.
And working with a lot of coaches, working with a lot of elite athletes, and also being in the sports industry yourself and exercise machine industry, how do you see the future of strength and conditioning and future of wellness for human performance?
Well, I mean, if technology expands as fast as we think it is going to be on the next decade, I think we're going to learn so much more about how the human body operates. And in my mind, it's going to use the technology will be based in letting us, we're in the stage of we want to track everything. And we're really good at tracking. And we track all these different parameters and we throw it into a database when somebody downloads it into this athlete management system. I think a lot of our questions are going to be answered in the next decade, and we're going to be able to use science to be able to auto-regulate athletes' training programs. So to me, the technology is going to be a tool, but at the end of the day, it's still going to come down to that human interaction and the communication of goals and training plans and having those highly motivated athletes move forward.
So do you think humans are going to get faster or in the 100 meters sprint?
Absolutely. If you watch the World Championships in track and field that just happened a couple of weeks ago, it's amazing of how much proper training, and we're still not even there yet for the vast majority of people. Human performance, I don't think, has even seen what we're capable of.
Wow. Do you still feel like with the current technology that we have, we still haven't really reached 100% of our genetic potential yet?
Absolutely not.
Wow, man. Well, hey, thank you so much for today. I think I've seen the past, the present, and the future of strength conditioning and health and wellness industry for the long run. Thank you so much for coming on to the show, Ty. Any last final message you want to leave for the strength conditioning and coaches out there?
I mean, I think really the most valuable part of being a coach is changing people's lives. So my recommendation is not to be so dogmatic about your methodology, to have an open brain and to always remember knowledge is power.
Knowledge is power. Open-minded and just, you know, you're changing people's life every single day, guys. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Thank you so much, Ty, for being here with us today. I hope this is a great episode for you guys. I learned a lot. I hope you guys learned a lot. We'll cut this into smaller segments just for you to enjoy at home when you need just tune in to certain aspects or certain ideas in strength and conditioning. Thank you so much, Coach Ty, for coming on. I hope you have a Thank you. I hope you had a great flight home and a bright future wherever you go with strength conditioning.
Thank you.
Yeah, stay safe, stay strong, stay powerful, guys. That's it for today. Bye.